Music theory. Do we truly need it to make modern music? I would say yes, and here's why. In music theory, I think we tend to complicate it because we have all these masterful teachers on YouTube, but they talk PhD level to where simple things sound complex. So really, what music theory comes down to is understanding three notes. Now, these three notes can do a lot. So I'm playing a D minor chord right now. You don't need to memorize this. Just listen to the tone. So what dictates this chord type is really three notes. And really, if you take out the middle note, you have what's called a fifth combination or power chord. So that can be played as a chord as well. But what if we take out the middle note? Okay, so the middle note is really important for the identity of a chord. So if I raise this minor third up one, I have a major triad. Okay, so what can we do with this? Basically, I can play a minor chord. Okay, now what happens if I play a minor chord starting at what's called the fifth, the top note? Play another minor chord starting there. And now I have a minor ninth chord. Okay, so it really comes down to three notes that just keep stacking and doing different arrangements. Okay, so let's add a minor chord plus a minor chord. We get a minor ninth. Now what happens if I take that bottom third and now raise it to a major third? We get the dominant ninth chord in this case. I'm just moving one note and it creates that vibe. Okay, so what I'll do here is I'll show you what it sounds like to combine different three note combos. This is a minor chord. Now if we drop the third down one, we get a suspended second chord. If I take the minor chord, raise that middle note up one, we get the major. Now if I go up another one, okay, that's your other suspended chord there. It's almost a melody, right? Simply changing those notes, okay? So what people tend to overlook with melody is that it starts with harmony. Harmony is the key to melody. That's why you're not understanding melody as much. It's because you're overlooking the power of what three notes can do. Okay, so let's thicken this up. Make it a little bit darker. All we're doing is just taking that middle note and going down one. Really simple. Okay, so let's go over the different chord types we can make with three notes. Okay, so three notes can do a lot. I only went over a couple, which is minor, major. But what happens if we change up the arrangement? Okay, so starting at the root note, then we count up three. And then instead of going to the perfect fifth, we go to six instead. It's called a diminished chord. And all we're doing is taking one note and going to the next note down. Not very complicated when you're playing this. There's a lot of chords. Okay, so that's where are we at here? D minor chord, then we play D diminished, 0, 3, 6. Okay, we can also play, this is the major chord, but what happens if we take that top note and raise it up one? So all we're doing is just moving one note of these three notes around one, and we're getting different combinations. So here's what's called an augmented. And that half step usually wants to fall back down a half step or go up a half step. Okay, now when you get fancy, you could basically trick the ear to expect a certain chord, but you hit a different chord. So that's a different framework. But all I'm trying to show you with music theory is it's really built around three notes. Okay, we have the minor chord, the major chord, three note, suspended second, suspended fourth. Then we have the augmented. Then we have diminished. 0, 3, 6, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can pretty much make all the chord types. Now, from these simple chord types, you stack these chord types, and that's how you get the bigger complex chords. Like, okay, so again, like I said, if you start with a minor chord and you stack a minor chord starting from D over, or under, I should say, a minor chord starting from A, which is the fifth, you get a ninth, minor ninth. Now you can rearrange that chord by moving any of those thirds. These are the thirds, third and the seventh, and you can rearrange those notes to give it a different identity. Now we're playing a major ninth. So the thirds dictate like the vibe for the chord or what chord type it is. Now you can also play altered chords. So if we're starting from G, for example, I'm trying not to bore you with like deep music theory. But if you start at G, G, B, D, F, B, D, F, creates what's called a diminished chord. And the long story short is that this is a dominant ninth chord. So what you could do to make this sound more interesting is work off of the fifth. Instead of the third and the seventh that kind of give it its identity, you could work off of the fifth and the ninth and move those notes around. So I like to raise the fifth and the ninth. And that gives you that R&B type sound. Okay, and then you can come back to the tonic, or you could do your, there's other ways to come back down. But the point is, instead of the third and the seventh of that chord, you're just moving the fifth and the ninth around. So all I'm saying is you take combinations of three and you move one note, and then you get a new chord type. So they just teach music theory to sound complicated, but that's all it really is like moving one note up or down in a chord. Take that one, that's a vibey one right there. Okay. All right, so that's what I'm showing you. I'm trying to simplify so it just doesn't get complicated though. But I just want you guys to think, when you're playing your chords, what one note can you move? What if we flatten the ninth and the fifth? Now flattening to me doesn't have the same vibe. And my ear wants to land here. Okay, so it's just guiding the ear in half steps. I just wanted to demystify music theory so that you're not like making it way more complicated than what it really is. And all the scales are just sequences of notes that somebody liked and they mapped them down in their interval distances. Okay, so like that's pretty simple. So if you start at A, that's the natural minor scale. But what if we play the same exact white note starting from E, for example? That gives us a whole different vibe. And those are called modes. So we're playing the same notes. We're just starting at a different point. And all those sequences have a given whole step, half step relationship. And that's the differences in scales. So scales, I don't want you to get focused on scales so much because you can go outside the scale and come back in. I don't want you to get locked into the scale way of going about music theory so much. But those were the quick things I wanted to show you about music theory. Is just, it really comes down to three notes. And then what you do with these three notes. Now you don't even have to play three notes. You can omit the third and just play perfect fourths or perfect fifths. And that can give you a vibe, just these two notes alone. So let me show you this. Here's a technique too. You could do fifth of a fifth and then play the fifth of that fifth, which is E. Okay, so that gives you like a Michael Jackson type. Okay, so let me record this because it's kind of hard to eyeball it. So let me just show you this. So we're playing fifths. And then, okay, so I'm just gonna hit shift. Now, luckily we have computers so we can move notes around. So I'm not playing technically, if you look at the old definition of a chord, it's two notes or more. But technically, this isn't a chord type. It's just a perfect fifth. But it feels like a chord. So these are the things I'm trying to show you. Now, once we add that third in there, that's where it gives it its chord identity, I'll say. And if I switch that third to a major, it gives the chord type. Okay, so I'm not going to bore you to tears with all the little details. I have a new course coming out called Music Theory Magic. I go deep into the emotion behind music. That's the real thing you want to focus on, not necessarily a scale or a specific mode. You want to focus in on the emotion first and then reverse engineer from there. And I show you how to do it in our new Music Theory Magic course. Just go to busyworksbeats.com/music theory. I'll see you there. Peace.